let's touch upon some common positioning mistakes. So on the flip side, so the first one is thinking about positioning by capabilities, not problem solved. So when you say like, oh, we do branding, we do web, we do content, paid media, you're really describing your capabilities list, not positioning or not what you're actually solving for your clients.
Yeah.
Um, yep. Another one might be positioning that only lives on your website. So you may go through this work and you'll put it on your site, but then your team doesn't know it, can repeat it if they're on a sales call or in a conversation. Like no one's really talking about it. So the test there is if you think about it, even at the leadership level, can any leader on your team explain what you do for whom, and then why do you win, and really going through those four aspects of positioning.
Can I stop it? Like, no, this is like, it's so painful because I'm thinking about all the times in the past where like, I would have done a lot of positioning work in my mind or like, of my notes in my notes. And then like, I forget to tell people about it or like share it. And then like, I might use it in like my conversations with like prospects or whatever. But then like, later on, I hear someone else, I don't think it's even happened between the two of us. It's like, I hear you talk about it. It's like that's not our positioning. It's like, and it's just like, I just forgot to, tell folks
Yeah.
about it. And so it's so
Everyone
important
has a
to,
different one.
yeah.
Everyone has a
Oh
different
God.
positioning in their minds.
Exactly.
Yep. All right. So next one is positioning that's aspirational, not earned. So if for example, if you claim we do digital transformation, but the proof in all the work that you do is very executional. So you really need to, your positioning has to match what you do, what you've done, and where you sit on that value ladder to the clients.
Yeah. One allowance I'll make here, because we did talk about how positioning is future looking, forward looking. And so, yeah, like, in some cases, there might be something where, you might have the makings of the expertise and you feel fairly confident that you could build up to it. But
Yeah.
then you're going to take that leap and then you want to put that stake in the ground.
Yeah. You
That's
need
okay.
some
That's
kind of
okay.
differentiator that you can prove, even if it's a stretch. You need to be able
Yeah.
to prove it somehow that you can do and deliver for the
Exactly.
clients.
So there's gradation.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so much of positioning is aspirational, but I'd say like, yeah, there's a spectrum of it, and so like, yes, have some realistic
Something.
way to close that gap. So just but like, don't do the like, let's say you've never touched AI before, and now all of a sudden you're AI transformation XYZ or whatever. Like, that's a stretch, but if you're on the path, okay, that's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And then the last positioning mistake is just refusing to commit. We talked about this at the start, where you fall into the trap of saying, "Hey, we serve everyone and we do everything." And really, oftentimes you talked about this. It comes from a scarcity mindset where you just feel like you need to grab every piece of business you can.
Yep.
All right. So we've talked about a bunch of this in prior episodes. And if you think about how positioning kind of connects outwards and how do you kind of communicate that? So first is to your ecosystem. So in episode 28, we went deep into ecosystem. So the positioning really helps define what world you exist and where you matter. So for example, if you're a Shopify agency for CPG, then the Shopify partner community and the CPG industry events are the worlds that you exist. And then if you don't have that clear positioning and your positioning is vague, you end up showing up everywhere and like you'll never get deep anywhere.
Yep.
The next is to your ICP. So in episode 33, we go deep on ICP. So positioning, if you think about positioning and ICP, they work together to sharpen each other. So a tight ICP really helps reveal more of these wedge opportunities. Um, and the wedge really helps narrow who your ICP really is.
Cool. And then we did we mentioned service offering as well, right? This is how you can connect your positioning, and yeah, like I said, this is talked about at length at episode 31. But really, connecting the wedge to that entry offer. And then, of course, differentiators that we talked about, need to show up in your delivery because that is a promise that you want to make sure is true. And then, yeah, if there's any kind of gap between what you claim and what your clients experience, the positioning will erode. So be sure to kind of back up what you say with actual delivery.
Yeah.
And then last part, like, the proof aspect of it, of things. And you know we'll talk about this in the future as well, but like, your proof inventory. So these are things like case studies, the references that you can kind of send people to, or like testimonials. These should all back up every part of your positioning. And so, if you have this wedge that you keep talking about, but then you have like no case studies for it, that's going to be another kind of gap in your positioning. So make sure you take care of that. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, we all right. So we covered a lot on this episode. The four components, of course, and like we said, this is uh, positioning is a very fundamental thing that you can do to agency, and is a big part of kind of the foundation that we keep talking about. And so, yeah, this is a wrap in terms of positioning. But as we mentioned before, even if it's the early days for your agency, it's still worthwhile to invest, and just be proactive in that way. Go to foundation.agencyhabits.com. We have a free diagnostic tool there to help with positioning. Check it out.